All right, get ready for a deep dive into the world of entrepreneurship. You've given us so much great material to work with. There's a business plan template in here, advice on what it takes to really make it, and even some pretty in-depth stuff on financing and marketing. So we're going to try to break it all down, give you the knowledge and honestly the right mindset to not just start a business, but to make it really thrive.
It's a really good sign that you've included so many different types of sources, by the way. It shows that you're thinking about this from all angles.
Yeah.
And that's crucial when you're trying to build something from scratch, you know?
Right. I mean, there's a lot to think about.
Definitely.
I guess first things first, finding your niche. One thing that really jumps out from these sources is that passion is key.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just about finding a market need. It's about finding a market need that you're actually excited to fill.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, one of the sources actually says that passion is what fuels persistence. And building a business, it's going to have its ups and downs. It always does. But if you're not genuinely passionate about what you're doing, it's going to be a lot harder to keep going when those tough times hit.
There's actually a story in here about an entrepreneur who was about to give up, like completely call it quits, on their business. And then they ran into a potential customer who was so excited about their product that it totally reignited their passion and drive. And they ended up sticking with it and becoming really successful. I thought that was such a good reminder that sometimes all it takes is a little spark, to keep the fire burning.
For sure. And speaking of finding that spark, your sources also talk about the importance of figuring out who your ideal customer is. Like, instead of trying to be everything to everyone, focusing on a specific niche can actually be a lot more profitable.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
It does.
And that actually reminds me of the story you included about Ed Lowe and Kitty Litter. Like, that's such a classic example of finding a niche and solving a problem that people didn't even know they had.
I know. Who knew there was such a huge market for absorbent clay? But he saw the need and tapped into it, and now it's a multi-million-dollar business.
That's pretty crazy, right?
It is. It just goes to show that sometimes the most unexpected ideas can be the most successful ones.
So you included this great business plan template, which I think is a really helpful tool to start organizing your thoughts. But from your experience, what are the things in a business plan that are like make it or break it? The must-haves.
I'd say the absolute must-haves are having a clear vision for where you want your business to go and setting achievable goals to get there.
Okay, so the vision is like the big picture.
Exactly. Like, your vision is your North Star. It's where you see your business in the long term. And it should guide all your decisions. But it's equally important to break that vision down into specific, measurable goals.
Okay, so it's like those milestones on your journey.
Exactly. Without them, it's easy to get sidetracked or lose momentum.
Right, right.
And another critical part of a solid business plan is market research. One of your sources really goes deep on this, and I think it's worth highlighting. Like, you need to really understand your competitors, know what your ideal customer actually wants and needs, and be able to kind of anticipate industry trends.
It's tricky.
It is. But it's not just about gathering data. It's about actually using that data to make smart decisions about your product, your pricing, your whole marketing strategy.
One of the things I found interesting was this thing called a SWOT analysis. It seems like such a simple tool, but it's so effective for figuring out your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
I'm a big fan of SWOT analyses. It forces you to think critically about your business and its place in the market. It's amazing what insights can come out of that.
Okay, so we talked about finding your niche and putting together a good business plan. Now let's get to the, I guess, less fun part, the money. This section on financing has me kind of nervous, to be honest. You've got info on everything from like bootstrapping to venture capital, and I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on the pros and cons of each approach?
Well, there are a lot of options, and the right path really depends on your situation, your comfort level with risk, that kind of thing. I mean, let's start with the classic route, using your personal savings.
The I'm all in approach. You're putting your own skin in a game, which shows commitment, but it's also risky.
Very risky. It's great if you have the resources and you're comfortable with the potential downsides, but it's not for everyone.
Right, right. And what about loans? There's a lot of info here on different types of loans, interest rates, repayment schedules. It's almost overwhelming. What are the key things that new entrepreneurs should understand?
I think the most important distinction is between secured and unsecured loans. Secured loans require collateral, so you're basically putting up an asset like your house or your car to guarantee the loan. If you can't pay it back, the lender can take that asset.
So that's a lot riskier. But sometimes it's the only option.
Right. It can be. Unsecured loans don't require collateral, but you'll usually end up with higher interest rates because the lender is taking on more risk, obviously.
Makes sense. And then there's approaching friends and family for funding, which can be tricky.
Very tricky.
One of these sources actually talks about setting really clear boundaries and keeping it as professional as possible, like you're still doing business.
100%. Mixing money and personal relationships is a recipe for disaster. It's crucial to have everything in writing, just like you would with any other investor, and be really clear about the risks involved.
All right, so let's talk about the big leagues. Venture capitalists and angel investors. These are the people with the deep pockets, the ones who can really help a business take off.
But they want a piece of the pie.
Exactly. What are your thoughts on this road?
Well, it can be really exciting, right? You're partnering with experienced people who can provide not just funding, but mentorship, guidance. They've been there, done that. However, you're absolutely right. It's a trade-off. You give up some control of your business in exchange for their investment.
So it's about weighing the pros and cons, making sure it aligns with your vision, your long-term goals for the company.
Definitely. One of the sources, it's an interview with an entrepreneur who actually went the venture capital route. They talk about being ready to answer tough questions, being really clear about your business model and your growth strategy. It's not enough to just have a cool idea. You have to be able to articulate it, in a way that convinces these investors.
They want to see that return on investment.
Exactly. Investors are looking for high growth potential and a clear path to profitability.
All right, so we've looked at some of the most common financing options. Now let's shift gears and talk about how to actually get those customers knocking on your door. You've got tips on everything from like old school advertising to the latest digital strategies. It's a lot. Where do we even begin?
Well, I think the first step is to really nail down your unique selling proposition or your USP. What makes your business stand out? Why should people choose you over everyone else?
I'm glad you brought that up, the USP. One of the sources actually says that it's the foundation of your entire marketing strategy.
100%. Your USP is the heart of your brand identity. It's what you're putting out into the world. It should be woven into everything you do, from your website to your social media, even to how you package your products.
Interesting. You also included some pretty powerful stuff on direct response marketing. I'll be honest, I wasn't super familiar with that before this deep dive, so
Yeah.
Tell me more.
So direct response marketing is all about getting a measurable response from your audience. It's about crafting offers they can't refuse, writing those headlines that grab their attention. It's about making them feel like they need to act now.
Oh, I see. Like those late night infomercials.
Exactly. They create urgency, they lay out the problem, and then boom, the perfect solution. Clear calls to action, limited time offers, make it easy to say yes.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
It does.
It's not just about selling the product. It's about selling the solution.
Exactly. And one of the sources, there's a case study in here, a company increased their sales by 400% just by changing their call to action button. They went from a generic learn more to claim your free trial.
Wow, 400%. That's incredible.
Right. It shows you the power of just changing a few words, the psychology of marketing. Sometimes the smallest tweaks can make a huge difference.
That is wild. Okay, so we've talked about that customer-centric approach and direct response marketing. Now let's tackle something that's always been kind of a mystery to me. Branding. What makes a brand strong, and how can entrepreneurs build a brand that people actually connect with?
Building a strong brand is all about creating an identity that's all your own, that sets you apart. It's about defining your values, your personality, what makes you unique. And it's about going beyond just selling a product. It's about creating a feeling, a lifestyle, something that people want to be a part of. Think about brands like Apple or Nike. They're not just selling phones and shoes, they're selling an idea.
That's a really good point. But how do you actually do that? Build a brand like that? It seems so big.
It is big, but it starts with truly knowing your ideal customer, their hopes, their fears, their dreams. What are they struggling with? What kind of language resonates with them? Once you really get that, then you can start to craft a brand that speaks directly to them, that pulls them in.
So it's about more than a logo or a tagline.
Way more. One of your sources actually emphasizes the importance of consistency. Your message, your look, the overall vibe you're putting out there, it needs to be consistent across all your platforms, your website, your social media, even your packaging if you have physical products.
Okay, that makes sense. So people recognize you no matter where they see you.
Exactly. Think about those huge brands again, their logos, their colors, their slogans. You see them anywhere and you know exactly who it is. That's the power of consistent branding. It builds trust and familiarity.
All right, so let's move on to something that's obviously huge these days. Social media marketing. You've got tons of info in here on building a strategy, creating content, measuring results. I feel like I could spend a whole week just on this. Where do we even start?
I think the most important thing is to remember that social media at its core is about relationships. It's not just about blasting out your message. It's about connecting with people, having conversations, building a community around your brand.
It's about being social.
Exactly. And one of your sources talks about being authentic. People can smell a fake a mile away. You have to be genuine, transparent, let your personality shine through.
People want to connect with real people.
They do. And it's important to remember that different platforms have different vibes, different audiences. What works on Instagram might not work on LinkedIn. So you have to tailor your content and your approach to each platform.
That makes sense. I've noticed that.
Yeah, and it's important to be consistent. It's better to be active on a few platforms and do them well than to try to be everywhere and not be able to keep up. Quality over quantity.
One of my biggest struggles is creating engaging content. It feels like you need new stuff all the time. Any tips?
Well, there are tons of tools out there that can help you plan your posts, schedule them in advance. You can also repurpose content from other places like your blog or email newsletter. And you can even use content that your audience creates.
No, that's a good idea.
It is. It's a great way to show that you're listening to your audience, that you value their input. It also gives you a break from creating everything yourself.
Okay, so we've talked about content. Now, let's talk about measuring those results. You included some good info on social media analytics. What are your thoughts?
If you're not measuring your results, how do you know what's working? It's crucial to track your progress so you can adjust your strategy as you go. And luckily, social media platforms give you tons of data.
That's true.
But you have to know what to look for. One of the sources you have actually talks about setting clear goals for your social media efforts. What are you trying to achieve? More brand awareness, traffic to your website, actual leads.
Right. What's the point?
Exactly. When you know what you're aiming for, you can track the metrics that really matter. It could be engagement, reach, or maybe even conversions like actual sales. It all depends on your goals.
Makes sense.
And remember, social media is a long game. It takes time to build a following, get your name out there, and see real results.
It's not a quick fix.
Definitely not. It's about building relationships, providing value, showing up consistently.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so ready to jump into the world of marketing and sales?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm curious to see what we can find in all this material you gave me.
Me too. One thing that keeps coming up is that marketing. It's not just about getting your message out there, like shouting it from the rooftops. It's really about understanding your customers, like really getting them, almost anticipating what they need.
It's about building a relationship, not just like making a sale.
Exactly. And these sources, they really emphasize how important that is now, especially with all the online stuff. You're competing with so much information out there, it's crazy. So you got to cut through the noise and really connect with people.
It's almost like you have to become part of their conversation, not just interrupted with your ads.
I like that. It's about giving them something valuable, becoming a resource they can rely on, so they start to trust you.
One of the strategies you gave me is called direct response marketing. I got to be honest, I didn't really know what that was before. What makes that approach so effective?
Direct response marketing. It's all about getting a measurable response. So you're crafting offers that your customer just can't resist. Think about those late night infomercials. They're like the masters of this.
Well, yeah.
They create this sense of urgency, they highlight the problem, and then boom, they present the solution. And it seems like you can't live without it.
So it's not just about selling the product itself, it's about selling the solution to their problem.
Right, and it has to be super easy for the customer to take action. Clear calls to action, limited time offers, making the buying process really smooth. Those are all key elements.
There's a case study in here, a company that increased their sales by 400% just by changing the wording on their call to action button. It went from learn more to claim your free trial.
I know, it's amazing. A 400% increase just from a few words. It shows you how powerful psychology can be in marketing.
That is crazy. Okay, so we've looked at being customer-focused and direct response marketing. Now, let's talk about something that's always been a bit confusing to me. Branding. What makes a brand strong, and how can entrepreneurs build a brand that people really connect with?
A strong brand is all about having a clear identity, something that separates you from the competition. It's about defining your values, your personality, what makes you stand out from everyone else. And it goes deeper than just selling a product. It's about creating a feeling, a whole lifestyle, something that people want to be a part of. Think about brands like Apple or Nike. They're not just selling phones or shoes, they're selling an idea.
That's true. I never thought about it like that. But how do you actually build a brand like that? It seems so huge.
It is a big task, but it starts with really understanding your ideal customer. Like really getting inside their head. What are their dreams? What are their fears? What are they struggling with? What kind of language really speaks to them? Once you understand all of that, then you can start crafting a brand that feels like it's made just for them.
Okay, so it's way more than a logo or a catchy slogan.
Oh yeah, much more. One of your sources talks about consistency, which I think is really important. Your message, your visuals, the tone of your brand, it all needs to be consistent across every platform. Your website, your social media, even down to your packaging if you sell physical products.
Right, so people recognize you no matter where they see you.
Exactly. Think about those big brands again, like Nike or Coca-Cola. Their logos, their colors, their slogans. You see them anywhere, and you instantly know who it is. That's the power of a consistent brand. It builds trust and makes people feel like they know you.
All right, let's get into something that's obviously a big deal these days. Social media marketing. You've given me a ton of information on building a strategy, making good content, tracking your results. I feel like I could spend a week just on this. So where do we even start?
The most important thing with social media, remember, it's about relationships. It's not just about shouting your message into the void. It's about connecting with real people, having conversations, building a community around your brand.
It's about being social, right?
Exactly. One of your sources, they talk about being authentic. And that's huge. People can tell when you're being fake. So be genuine, be transparent, let people see your personality.
People want to connect with other people, not just some faceless company.
100%. And you have to remember each platform is different. The audience is different. The vibe is different. What works on Instagram might not work on LinkedIn. So tailor your content, change your approach depending on where you are.
That makes sense.
And be consistent. It's better to be really active on a few platforms than to spread yourself too thin and not be able to keep up.
I've definitely been guilty of that.
I think we all have, but it's something to keep in mind. It's about quality over quantity.
One of my biggest struggles is coming up with content ideas.
Yeah.
It feels like you need something new all the time. Any tips for that?
Oh, I feel that. There are a lot of tools that can help, to plan your posts, schedule them in advance, and you can repurpose content like stuff from your blog or email newsletter. And don't be afraid to use content that your audience creates.
No, that's a good idea. Like sharing customer testimonials or something?
Exactly. It shows that you're listening, that you value what they have to say, and it gives you a break from creating everything yourself.
Okay, we talked about creating content. Now let's talk about how to measure your results. You include some good information on using analytics on social media. What do you think about that?
If you're not measuring, you're just guessing, right? You have to track your progress. You can see what's working and what's not. And luckily, social media gives you so much data to work with.
So much. It's almost overwhelming.
I know. But you have to know what to look for. One of your sources talks about setting specific goals for social media. Like, what are you hoping to accomplish? Are you trying to just get your name out there? Or are you looking for website traffic or even sales?
Yeah, what's the point if you don't know what you're trying to do?
Exactly. When you know your goals, you can focus on the numbers that matter most. It could be engagement, reach, conversions, maybe even things like click-through rates. It all depends on what you're aiming for.
Okay, that makes sense.
And always remember, social media, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It takes time to build a following and start seeing real results.
So be patient.
Yeah, be patient and consistent. It's about building those relationships, showing up regularly, giving people a reason to follow you.
I like that. Okay, so we've covered social media pretty well. Now let's talk about email marketing. You have some really good info in here about building your email list, writing good emails, tracking your results. Where should we start?
The most important thing with email marketing is to remember it's all about permission. You need to get people's permission before you start sending them emails. Don't just buy a list or anything like that. You want people who actually want to hear from you.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. You don't want to annoy people.
Right. And one of your sources, they talk about creating what's called a lead magnet, like a free ebook or a discount code. It's something valuable that you offer people in exchange for their email address.
So you give them something, and they give you their email address.
Yeah.
A fair trade.
Exactly. It's all about giving them a reason to want to hear from you.
And the emails themselves, they have to be good too, right?
Uh,
People get so many emails these days, you really have to stand out.
you do. Give them something valuable, interesting content, maybe some special offers. Don't just send the same boring email to everyone.
Writing good subject lines.
Hmm.
That's always been a struggle for me. They're so important, but it's hard to come up with something catchy.
I know, it's tricky. There are some good resources out there with tips and examples, and you can always test different subject lines to see what works best. Like send version A to half your list and version B to the other half. See which one gets more opens.
That's a good idea. Take the guesswork out of it. Okay, so we talked about building the list and writing good emails. What about tracking your results? What kind of things should we be looking at?
Open rates, click-through rates, conversion rates. These are all really important to track. You want to know how many people are actually opening your emails, how many are clicking on your links, and then are they actually taking the action you want them to take? Are they buying something, signing up for a webinar, whatever your goal is?
It's like, is it actually working?
Right. You want to know if your efforts are paying off. And one of your sources, they talk about segmenting your list. So instead of sending the same email to everyone, you can divide your list into different groups based on their interests, their demographics, things like that. And then you can send more targeted emails so they're more likely to be relevant to each person.
That's a good idea. I've gotten emails before that are just completely irrelevant to me.
I know, me too. It's annoying.
It is. Okay, so we've done email marketing. Now let's talk about content marketing. You got some good stuff in here about creating valuable content, promoting it, and measuring results. Where should we start?
I think the most important thing to remember with content marketing is that it's all about providing value to your audience. It's not about directly selling your products or services. It's about giving them something helpful, something interesting, something that makes them want to come back for more.
You're giving them something for free, so they start to trust you.
Exactly. And one of the sources you have, it emphasizes how important it is to make content that's relevant to your audience. What are they searching for? What are their problems? What kind of content are they already engaging with?
Know your audience.
Absolutely. And another key point, be consistent. You need to be creating and sharing content regularly if you want to build an audience and keep them coming back for more.
Don't just post once a month and expect people to remember you.
Exactly. It's about building that habit of content creation, being a reliable source of information or entertainment, whatever your niche is.
Okay, I can see that. But even if you create great content, you still have to get people to see it.
You do. Content promotion is just as important as content creation. Share your content on social media, use email marketing, look for opportunities to get it in front of new people.
Don't be shy.
Exactly. You've got to get it out there. One thing I personally struggle with is coming up with new content ideas. It feels like everything's already been done.
I know, me too. It can be tough.
There are some good resources for that, though. You can use keyword research tools to see what people are searching for online. You can check out what your competitors are doing. And you can even ask your audience directly.
Oh, that's smart. Ask them what they want.
Exactly. It's a great way to make sure you're creating something that's actually valuable to them.
Okay, so we've got content creation and promotion. Now let's talk about measuring those results. What should we be looking at?
Well, there are a few things. Website traffic. How much engagement are you getting on social media? Are you generating leads? Are those leads turning into sales? You want to see how many people are actually seeing and engaging with your content, and is it leading to the actions you want them to take?
Right. Are you actually achieving your goals?
Exactly. You need to know if your content marketing is working. If it's not, you might need to tweak your strategy.
It's all about testing and tweaking.
It is.
Okay, so sales. I think a lot of people, when they think of sales, they think of pushy salespeople. You know, like that stereotypical used car salesman.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. The whole, like, slicked back hair, fast talking.
Yeah. But the stuff you gave me paints a very different picture.
It really does. All those sources you gathered. They really stress that good sales is about relationships, understanding your customer. It's about figuring out what they need and then offering solutions that actually help them. It's not about, tricking them or pressuring them into buying something they don't need.
It's not about that hard sell.
Nope. One of the sources, they actually describe it as dancing with the buyer. I thought that was such a great way to put it.
I like that, dancing with the buyer. So it's like a partnership.
It is. It's about finding that rhythm, building that connection, and working together to reach a win-win.
So how can we, as entrepreneurs, approach sales with that kind of mindset? What are some things we can actually do?
Well, first of all, be a good listener. Really listen to what your customer is saying. What are their pain points? What are they trying to achieve? Ask good questions, really pay attention to their answers, and don't interrupt. The better you understand them, the better you can help them.
It's about being a consultant almost, a problem solver, not just a salesperson.
Exactly. And once you really understand their needs, you can tailor your pitch, Highlight the features and benefits that will really resonate with them, the things that will actually solve their problems.
One of the sources talked about storytelling. Like, don't just give them facts and figures. Tell a story that will really connect with them, draw them in.
Storytelling is so powerful. It helps people remember your message. It makes you stand out. I mean, think about all those big, successful brands out there. They all have a story.
That's true.
And it makes you relatable.
Another thing that really stood out to me, the importance of building trust. I mean, people buy from people they trust, right? How can we build that trust with potential customers?
Well, I think transparency is huge. Be honest about your pricing, your process, even your limitations. Don't try to hide anything or overpromise. And be yourself. People can tell when you're being fake.
Be authentic.
Yeah, be genuine. People want to do business with people they like and trust.
And then, of course, there's customer service. It's not just about making the sale. It's about keeping those customers happy, making them want to come back for more.
Oh, that's so important. Happy customers are your best marketing. They'll tell their friends, leave good reviews. It's so much easier to keep a customer than to find a new one.
Definitely. Okay, so we talked about building relationships, listening to customers, tailoring your pitch, using storytelling, building trust, good customer service. What else stood out to you about sales?
One thing to remember, you're going to get rejected sometimes. Not every sales conversation is going to end with the sale. And that's okay. It's part of the process.
Yeah, don't take it personally.
Exactly. It's not a reflection on you. And one of the sources actually said, every no gets you closer to a yes. It's about having that resilience, not giving up just because you hit a few bumps in the road.
I like that. Every no gets you closer to a yes.
And never stop learning. There's always something new to learn about sales. Read books, take courses, listen to podcasts, whatever works for you, and practice, practice, practice. The more you practice your pitch, the more confident you'll become.
Okay, so I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We looked at all the basics of starting a business, from coming up with an idea to getting funding. We explored all kinds of marketing strategies, from social media to email marketing to content marketing. And we even got into the art of sales.
It's been quite the journey. You've really done your research. I'm so impressed with all these sources you gathered. They're really insightful. And I know our listeners are going to get a lot out of this deep dive.
Me too.
Yeah.
And, before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. We've talked about a lot of tools and strategies for building a successful business, but in the end, it all comes down to action.
That's right. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't do anything with it, it's useless.
But what are you going to do? What's the first step you're going to take today to move your business forward? What action are you going to take to make your dreams a reality? We believe in you. Now get out there and make it happen.